Hello folks and welcome back to my channel. In this video I will introduce you to the TF-51D, which will be your first full fidelity aircraft module you will have available in your DCS World, and it comes for free. So, see you soon! And we are back in the cockpit of our Mustang. Now, even though this version of it is unarmed, it still does a great job in getting you started in DCS World full fidelity aircraft. As you can see here, we are parked at the ramp at the small airfield on the Normandy map, and I will quickly show you on the map what we will do today. I chose the DCS World Normandy map because for Second World War warbirds it is just a more realistic theater. It was heavily battled in the Second World War. As you can see here, when I zoom out, you will have the southern part of Great Britain and here the north of France, where you have many of these small airfields here. And today we will just take off from this airfield here, fly a small round towards the channel here. I will tell you what you can do with this aircraft and what you won't be able to do, and we will come back here and land at another airfield. As you can see here, when we use our ruler tool, the other airfield is approximately 9.5 nautical miles away, so it won't be a very long trip for us. I will only fly visual. We won't really need any kind of navigational instruments. This mission is not really supposed to be a tutorial, but still, in the upcoming minutes I will go through the startup process of the P-51 with you. Now, before we start clicking anything here in our cockpit, there is something I really need to mention, and I have no idea why that is, but the radio communications menu that you will need to communicate with the ground crew of an airfield, the ATC of an airfield, different kind of AWACS, you know, later on. Other aircraft in your wing, your wingman, and so on. For some reason, in the DCS World in-game tutorials that come with the game, this radio communications menu is never mentioned, and I have no idea why. Because if we are now going to start up our TF-51D, I will already need it. It just since this is a simulation after all. You will need to communicate with the ground crew. So I will activate the radio communications menu with a button that I bound to my HOTAS. I don't know now what is the preset button for this, but you will see it here in the upper right corner of my screen. I will first contact the ground crew and ask them to connect us to a ground electricity. So we during startup we don't need to rely on our battery only. Okay, now they connected us with a ground generator. You saw some of those gauges here came to life. Now the next step would be, and that is also not mentioned in the DCS World tutorials for some reason, that of course you will have to contact the ATC of the airfield and ask for permission to start the engine, to taxi, and of course to take off. For that we need to turn on the P-51's radio here. I happen to know that the ATC of our airfield is on a channel A, so I click here on the A. You will see two lights coming on, meaning we have power on our radio and we are on the right channel. I will now contact the ATC and ask for permission to start up our engine. Okay, there it is. We just got the permission from the ATC that we can start our engine. Now we will go through a certain sequence here, that in the beginning it is very useful to write it down, because these warbirds, starting them up is sometimes a little bit tricky. You have a few things to remember. With more modern jets, it is sometimes really just 2 or 3 buttons you have to click to start it up. With this here we will have to do a little bit more. So we will go from the cockpit from the very left to the right and go through these steps. First you want to keep in mind your flaps setting here. For taking off we will apply a little bit of flaps to give us more lift, but we don't need them deployed completely. They are now in the completely deployed position, so I will put the flaps lever completely up and then 2 positions down. Note now we can see here our flaps, they are now completely deployed. Obviously when I click around here with the flaps lever, it doesn't really change anything because we don't have power and hydraulics yet, so they will come up a few degrees once we started our engine. Next we want to put our carburetor airflow here to the ram air position. Next thing, we want to trim our rudder 5 degrees to the right. That is in order to make up for the propeller's torque on the ground. Next we want to put the lever here under our thrust lever to the increase position. Also we want to make sure that our fuel mixture lever here is first in the idle cutoff position as it is already now. Later on, when the propeller starts spinning, we have to flip it to the run position here. So we leave that lever where it is at the moment. Next we want to turn on our fuel boosters for the fuel pumps. We want to switch our ignition here to both magnets. We want to turn on our fuel cutoff valve. We also want to make sure that we are feeded fuel from the main fuel tank here. It is already so by default. Of course, then we also want to turn on our battery and our generator. Now everything should be set to start the engine. What we will also do is apply the parking brake so we don't randomly start rolling once the propeller starts spinning. So for that we will first push our wheel brakes down. We push the parking brake lever, we release the wheel brakes, and it should be engaged. Okay, now we open the protection here of our starter switch. We put the primer for a few seconds. We put the starter for a few seconds. Propeller starts spinning. We put this here to run. We increase the thrust a little bit, and there comes our engine. Okay, now we would be ready to use the taxiway here and get into our starting position. Of course, first I have to contact my ATC again and request a taxi to runway.
Infield 1-1, request taxi to runway.
And there is our permission. Now first, what I forgot before, of course, in real life you would do that before you do anything in the cockpit. You would walk around your aircraft and make sure that all your controls surfaces are moving. Here for the ailerons, for example, if you move your flight stick around, you need to confirm visually that all of these control surfaces move. We check the ailerons, we check the elevator here, and of course our rudder. Okay, everything is moving correctly. We will now disengage the parking brake by putting our wheel brakes down, and then we will slowly start maneuvering to the taxiway. Now first, what I also need to mention, the best or most efficient way to move these warbirds around on the ground is to use the left and the right wheel brakes with very, very gentle movements. Usually you would maneuver your warbird in an S pattern here on the taxiway in order to see over the nose and don't lose track of your taxiway. Also, when you experiment around with the wheel brakes, make sure that you only put very gentle inputs, because if you push them too long or too hard, you will flip over to the front and destroy your propeller. As a next step, we will again use our wheel brakes to make a sharp turn and get ourselves aligned with the runway. At the same point, we should soon receive takeoff clearance from the ATC. And there it is. Now there are two more steps. Obviously, you will have to close your canopy by using this lever here with your mouse wheel. I find it a little bit inconvenient to use. Of course, you can just roll it like that. I usually bind it to a hold test button. And we will also uncage our artificial horizon here, our main flight instrument. Now everything should be set for takeoff. We still have our rudder trimmed here. During takeoff, when you increase your speed, it's a little bit difficult to stay on the center line of the runway, but we will now give it a go. And we got her off the ground safely. Now, as a next step, you want to raise your landing gear. And once we picked up a little bit speed, we can also retract our flaps. We will now take a light turn towards the channel here, gain a little bit of altitude, and look here around here, our airfield and the French coast here. On the horizon you can barely see the southern coast of Great Britain. We are now climbing steadily. We are in the air, so I can again remove the trim on our rudder here. We don't need it anymore. It's only to use on the ground. Now note that for this module in the game there won't be any kind of missions provided. As I said already, it is unarmed. The only thing you can do is fly around, enjoy the views, do some aerobatics maybe, try to get your way around, some basic navigations, and just try to learn how full fidelity aircraft work. And believe me, just starting this thing up, taking off and landing at a different airfield in the beginning is already more than a challenge enough. Okay, there in the distance I can already see our target airfield. I don't know if you guys can. Yeah, there it is. So of course if we want to land there, we will have to contact the ATC again. I happen to know that this airfield, it's called Brushville, something like that. Pardon my French. So I have it here on my radio, channel B. I will try to contact the ATC of that airfield and ask for permission to land and tell them that we are inbound. So we will of course do a visual approach here. So we really don't want to lose the view on our airfield. We are now of course too high and too fast, so I will fly a 180 degrees turn. During that turn I will all the time try to descend and keep the speed at the safe value here. Now here you see again, as I mentioned already in an earlier video, how important it is to have some kind of head tracking device, because flying at the same time and not losing the view on the airfield and just being able to look behind you, look over your wings, and it takes a great workload away from you if you just have a head-mounted head tracking device like the Track IR I'm using at the moment. And now let's keep descending a little bit. Of course, during that process we will pick up speed, even if I reduce the thrust to almost idle. Unfortunately, in the TF-51 here we don't have air brakes, so I will have to slow down later by deploying flaps and also then increase the drag with the landing gear. At some point when we are far away, I will start turning towards the airfield and line up with our runway. That looks good. We will now come around. Just notice here at this point how beautiful everything looks in this simulator. It is really, you get stunning views here of the French landscape and of course of your module. Now by making a sharp turn around I will lose enough speed to attempt a safe landing. Got a little bit off center here of our runway. I will correct that now, no problem. We are far away enough. I will start deploying the flaps a little bit, maybe to the first or second position. That warning signal you can hear is if I have my thrust lever in the idle position and I don't have the landing gear deployed yet. Which I will do at this point. Once we can see the green light down here illuminated, it means like it is locked in position. I will now lower my flaps completely down to give us more lift at low speeds. I will now for a last time request landing here.
Request landing.
And at a speed of a little bit under 100 miles per hour, we should make our touchdown. We bounced a little bit here, that is no problem if you're slow enough, it won't damage your aircraft. Now by making gentle movements with the wheel brakes again, we can bring her to a safe stand. And open our canopy at this point. And there we are safely. So this was my introduction of the TF-51D. I think that especially for warbird lovers, this is a great module to get you started. Maybe you like it so much that you want to get the armed version of it. Of course you will have to pay for that. I don't know now exactly how much it costs, but that comes then with missions and campaigns. And of course those guns in your wings will be armed. So thank you very much for watching. I hope this was helpful, and see you next time.